Hello, welcome. This is Tammy, your connection guide at Single Life Today. And tonight we are presenting writing off your vacation expenses. Now, I have some excellent information for individuals, for employees, and for business owners. So I promise that before tonight ends, one of you and every one of you will get a little bit of a tidbit. So we're going to keep this in an open forum, open for discussion. I'm going to present some ideas and you're welcome to ask questions as we go along. First, I want to give you a little disclaimer, and that is my purpose tonight is to kind of share some concepts, right? Some ideas after studying the IRS website. So I'm in no way indicating that anybody should cheat the IRS, but I'm going to just float some things past you that might be relevant in your life that you might not have known about. So please also, at the end of the day, consult with your accountant because they would know your personal position and understand what's best for you. So let's talk about from the very beginning, what are the kinds of things that you write off? Well, transportation is the first area, which would include your airfare. It could be taxi rides, Uber rides, trains, car rental, etc. After transportation, you've got meals, hotel accommodations, or it could be Airbnb nowadays, cruises, we'll talk about that a little bit, and then related expenses. So first of all, I'm sure everybody wants to know how to write off their airline ticket. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we did an event and we talked about how to get free travel using credit cards. And I know that Mark here did some really good fancy footwork and got some free tickets for himself for New Year's Eve. So way to go, Mark, on applying what you learned here at Single Life Today. Okay, well, we're not all going to be able to write everything off. Let me start by saying that. So depending on what your position is, you might take advantage of one or two of these things tonight. And I'm going to save my bonus for the very end where I'm going to teach you how to write everything off. Okay, so just to start with, as an employee, I thought this was nice. Let's say you're going on a business trip and you want, so this isn't exactly a write-off, but this is a bonus. So let's say you're going on a business trip. Your boss says, you know, hey, we're going to send you to New Orleans for the weekend. Or we have to do a meeting with a couple of our clients down in New Orleans. So a lot of people try to do like, you know, fit it all in Monday through Friday and come home for the weekend, right? And a lot of companies may want you to do that. However, if you end up using your airline ticket for an entire week, sometimes you get a better fare. And if you schedule a meeting on a Friday and a meeting on a Monday so that you're required to be there over the weekend, then according to the IRS, that weekend that you spend in New Orleans or whatever destination is in the United States, this is domestic, you are able to write off any expenses that you have during that weekend stay. So you may be thinking, oh my gosh, well, I'm not a business and my company reimburses me, except that if you are doing a Schedule C for any reason other than the travel, let's say for example, some of you might be, so then you would be able to write off any expenses that you had, including excursions and things, right? So you might be reimbursed for your hotel room, but if you do something else like meals and excursions, that could be considered a write-off for you. Again, checking with your accountant. So it's kind of a nice way to sneak in a bonus weekend touring around at the expense of either your business or your company or writing that off on your taxes. Another workaround or benefit, this would really kind of be like for somebody who has a business. If you have a business and you're able to substantiate the trip as a business trip, you of course are able to write it off. And in that case, you're going to be able to write off your airline tickets, your meals that are non-entertainment, any transportation, and of course your hotel accommodation. So for business, if you are a business owner, all of that is deductible, tax deductible, if your travel is related to your business. And so on the IRS, I'm going to give you guys a link today before we finish to a publication number 463, so you guys can see how to assess some of these things. Obviously, your accountant is your best asset, but I find myself personally, sometimes I outdo my accounting people, my web tech people. I mean, we have a stake in our own lives, so it's not a bad idea to do your own research and check it out. So if you have a business and you are traveling for business, of course, almost everything is deductible. Some of the things that are not deductible would be entertainment and meals. So there's some clear definitions, but my advice on the meals are that you get to write off 50% of your meals, and it's pretty much the breakfast, lunch, and dinner menu. It's nothing more exciting than that. Although I will tell you, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I did write off a lap dance in Las Vegas at a strip club as entertainment for some of my single travelers in, like, I don't know, 1995 or something like that. So if they come after me for that, shame on me. But for the most part, things like that are not deductible. And you really pretty much have to stick with the breakfast, lunch, and dinner menu for your expenses if you're going to write it off for a business trip. But that's okay. For the most part, if you have a business and you're on a business trip, almost everything is deductible, so not to worry. But now if you're an employee, I found a little bit of a loophole here. So there's some exceptions when you're traveling internationally. You also have to substantiate. You should be traveling for 7 nights or less in order to be able to write off a business trip. When it's longer than that, there's some questions. But there is an exception, and I thought this was kind of cool. This could be good for business owners as well as employees. If you have a flexible leader that you're working for, you are able to travel outside the United States for more than 7 days and deduct from your taxes any expenses that you incur for personal time, as long as your personal activities are less than 25% of the total trip. So they gave an example here. So like you went to Tokyo for 14 days and 5 of the days were personal. So if you divide 5 by 21, that equals less than 25%, right? So 21 days into 5 days is an equation that equals less than 25% of your total time abroad was non-business. And so you are able to deduct those expenses as though they're business. So why do I say if you have a flexible leader? Because your boss should know this loophole. Like, so if you go like, hey, I'm going all the way to Tokyo, I want to spend 5 days over there, and guess what? My airfare is going to be less if I do that. You know that they can write it off. They're not going to be challenged by the IRS by giving you those extra days on the trip. Again, you have to be able to have an open, honest relationship with your leaders so that you can have those conversations. So I thought that was a very good argument, because a lot of times if you're going super far or it's a long-term vacation, you're going to want to take advantage of seeing some extra things while you're there. So if you have that kind of situation, I thought that would make sense. My next tip is for anybody who's a business or an individual. Let's say you have you're an employee, in other words, not a non-employee, kind of an individual, but either a business owner or an individual. Conventions and seminars. also help you qualify for writing off your expenses. And so if you attend a conference and it's directly related to your business, then you can, again, write off those expenses. The government always has an opportunity to decline, but it's always worth putting in for it. But if it is a legitimate, if it's something for your business and it's related, then there shouldn't be any reason for them to decline your deductions for that. I'm going to talk about cruises in a minute because some of us have the opportunity to attend a seminar or an event on a cruise. And there's a couple of ways to look at that. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Charitable vacations or charitable trips. So let's say some of us work for our churches, right? We volunteer. So if your church or your organization, your club, or it has to be a qualified organization, and the IRS does have a list of those. I'm not going to go over all those today, but it would be like, Girl Scouts, all of the mooses, all those animals, anything that's like Red Cross, charitable, and usually the defining qualification would be that it's religious, educational, medicinal, or medical field, or that it's helping animals or children, which I'll talk about in a minute with the volunteer vacations. So there are some very technical points all listed on this IRS page that I'm going to share with you. But let's say you're on the board of directors for your church and they want to send you to some kind of event in another city. That definitely qualifies for a tax write-off. So you have to prove all that, obviously. Volunteer vacations. Now we're getting into some waters where we're going to be able to benefit as just an individual, right? So we don't have to have a business. We don't have to work for somebody else to kind of sneak in an extra vacation or some of these benefits. There are a lot of companies out there that are 501(c), if I got that right. They're nonprofit organizations that are doing vacations in places all over the world. And this is a great way for us to give back on skills that we practiced while we were in business, while we worked through our careers, and share with people who are not as far as advanced. So if you're a nurse or a doctor or a dentist or an engineer or a mechanic or anything, a teacher, a coach, anything that you did during your career that you feel the heart to share with some people in another place that they're not that advanced. There are oodles of companies out there that will love to have you, and you sign up for the trip, and of course you pay for it. You pay for the trip, you pay for your airfare, there might be some miscellaneous expenses, maybe a visa, but all of that is 100% tax deductible. Would you like to know how? You are required to participate or be active in the sharing of those skills 8 hours a day. So it's really got to be your passion. Like for example, I know of a group and they go down to one of the Latin American countries on a regular basis and they administer medical care. So if you were in that field and you feel the heart that you want to help people, yet you get to see another location and be in camaraderie with some like-minded people, then that might be a great way for you to see that place and not have to, you pay for it, but then at the end of the day, you put it in to your tax return as a volunteer. And one of the companies that I talked to were very specific, and they said you designate yourself as a volunteer in the field. And so the IRS is comfortable with that terminology. And so if you paid to be on a trip, whether it's with one of these travel companies or a charitable organization, your cost to attend, your airfare, and any expenses, you deduct that from your taxes. And so in some cases, depending on what bracket you're in, it could mean anywhere from, you know, $1,000, $1,500 or more off of your tax bill. Any questions? Okay. Let's say you don't have a business, you aren't working, right? So some people are retired. There is a way for you to get your travel to be 100% tax deductible. And that is the best position, travel agent. And this is not self-serving, but while I was doing the research for this, and the reason I had the idea was because as a travel person, we are able to write off almost everything for ourselves personally, not for our families, not for, you know, colleagues, of course. And so as I was doing the research and thinking about how these things could be taken advantage of, inside the code, they gave an example of a travel agent. And so curiously, I didn't realize this, but now I know that the travel agents, so I'm going to use a cruise as an example, because that's one of the things that we all like to do is cruise. And most of the information that's written about cruises, here's the restrictions. And so I think most of you who do cruise, you're gonna be like, well, forget that, right? Because you are able to write up to $2,000 a year off on cruising. But number one, the cruise has to be registered in the USA. Well, most of the cruise ships we go on are not registered in the USA. But let's say you're doing a river cruise and you're attending a seminar and it's something relevant to what you do for a career. You can write up to $2,000 a year as long as it's US registered and all the ports are in the US. So that's great if that applies. Most of us are going on international cruises and we're going around the world. And so how do you do that? The only way that I was able to dig up is that if you're a travel agent. Here's the good news. It's not hard to do that. Well, it's hard to be a good travel agent, but it's not hard to be a travel agent. So there are numerous companies that would let you sign up. We all know that there's those, you know, travel agent mills that you can just pay some money and get a card. Well, that's legitimate, to be honest. You can do that. There are a lot of companies that are called host agencies. A host agency is just that. They set you up with some initial materials. They give you a list of companies that you should sell into if you're promoting travel. And some of them even set you up with your own little website. And then it's up to you. Go out and market to your friends, attend singles events around town, and talk about travel and offer your travel services. And if somebody books a vacation with you, great, you get a commission, but you also are now a travel agent. And there's no rule that says you have to sell anything before you're able to take advantage of the perks. But one of the things that I would say is over time, if you show no profit, some eyebrows will be raised. There will be some red flags. But in the meantime, if it's something that you're thinking about that might be of interest to you, then it's super viable. And as I was doing the research, I was thinking, well, gosh, you know, maybe someday we'll have some singles who want to become independent contractors for us here at Singles Travel International. We're certainly open to that, and it's a very easy entry. You're independent contractors, so as long as you're doing your own thing, you can be a sole proprietor. That would be the initial way to enter into this kind of engagement. You could also, you know, create yourself as an S Corp or a, there's another corporate structure. I can't think of it right this second, but sole proprietor is fine. The only thing about sole proprietor is that you don't have any protection if somebody sues you. So you can't issue their ticket on the wrong date or put them on the wrong ship. But again, I think with any of these host agencies, including Singles Travel International, we give you some great guidance. Well, so those are some of the ideas that I have. And the sky's the limit, by the way. So, I know, I promised to tell you what I read on the IRS site was that if you have if you're a travel agent, you're able to write off, as an example, here was an example. So they have a schedule of the amount of daily per diem that they use to calculate your write-off, right? So it's double the amount of the daily per diem for a government worker, because that's how they base it. On a government worker, if they're on a business trip, they might get 300 a day. Well, if you're on a cruise, it could be 600 a day. And it's oddly scheduled by the months. So I took an example. If you're a travel agent or a travel agent independent contractor and you go on a cruise in the month of December, as of 2020, the daily per diem was $988. So I'm seeing Sky Sweet, Mark. So that comes 7 days, that becomes $6,916. So that's quite a generous amount that you're able to write off. And you don't have to outline anything. Like, you don't have to say this was entertainment, these were meals, this was lodging, because it's a cruise, so it's all inclusive, all in one. So again, you can see then how being in the travel business makes it super easy, and it makes sense, because when you are a travel consultant or a travel agent, whatever you want to call it these days, you are responsible for people's dreams and their vacations. And so when you go on a vacation to a destination or you experience a cruise line, you become better consultant in that area or in that field. And so it makes all the sense in the world. So as of today, the IRS is very open to your being able to write off your vacation expenses in many different ways, but being a travel agent is the number one way. So that is my golden nugget for tonight's presentation. And I'm just gonna open up for some questions and answers with you guys to see if I can help you sort some of this through. And I would like to get your feedback as well on what some of these ideas sound like, and if you think there might be some opportunity for us to collaborate in the future. So thanks everybody for joining, and we're gonna go offline for Q&A. Welcome again to Single Life Today. We look forward to seeing you again in the future.